Nostr News, March
News.
1st edition. Welcome.
New month, baby.
New month, new you. So are you marching off Twitter? Isn't hashtag march off Twitter is the thing for this month?
Let's start off spicy. I don't know. I mean, so it's interesting. So if you all haven't seen, there's a hashtag trending on Nostr, march off Twitter. And I think it's, sort of tongue in cheek, but the month of march off Twitter and then, marching like almost in a militaristic way away from this site that we're no longer using that much.
Right.
I don't know if I'm gonna do the whole month off Twitter. I think I've used Twitter already so much less. I mean, I probably used, let's say I was using Twitter 5 hours a week or whatever before. I'm probably down to one, and all of the rest of that's gone to Nostr. In fact, and this is what I mentioned last time, even though I love Nostr in its current state, I don't love as much that I'm getting a little addicted to it, especially with the zaps, which we'll talk about.
Right.
But anyways, the reason I may not go totally off Twitter yet is I still am really interested in other stuff like AI.
Yep.
And AI Twitter is still very good.
Yep.
And I can't wait until they're on Nostr, but they're not there yet.
Yep.
And then also I've been, using Twitter to make, a couple of intros for some of my founders to other founders that are not yet on Nostr. So I don't know if I'll do the whole month off, but I mean, I'm already like 80% less and probably within a couple months we'll be off.
Right.
What about you?
For me, I would say I'm kind of a normie tech Silicon Valley person without all of the altcoins.
Good.
But everything else about like, new startups and how things are getting built and, how things are getting started. And that's kind of the world I've lived in for several decades now. And so a lot of those people are still on Twitter. And I actually have the opportunity to share the Nostr story. And then people become curious and ask me more about it. So like, I don't know if you saw the one yesterday from Matt Brezina.
I don't think so. Which one?
So Matt Brezina is a long time. Actually, I think I have the. I was about to do a video of it. He was a longtime founder.
Was this the AI guy?
No, he had started a couple YC companies. Okay. One was a very early YC, like maybe one of the first few cohorts called Zobni, which was like inbox spelled backwards. It was like an inbox management something.
Got it.
But he saw me tweeting about Nostr and all the videos I make and sharing the stats from nostr.band and stuff. And he's like, I've been waiting for something this amazing. And so then he chimed in and, downloaded Damus and signed up. And then he gave me the feedback. He said, onboarding was very painful. I think I already lost my public and private keys. Then I landed in a feed with only Damus posts, no network onboarding. So the reason I share that is to say, I like to, I love what's going on in Nostr and I love spending a lot of time there and meeting all the people and hearing about the ideas. But then I also like to try to distill the ideas for maybe a normie tech crowd or people who like either aren't sure or they're open to, figuring out what is this space all about.
Right.
I think there's a lot of excitement in the space. And when there's a lot of people who make a lot of noise about, you can build on these platform-y things, or you can build in this way. And I want to be present as a voice that says, hey, this is what's grabbing all of my attention, and this is where I'm spending all my attention because I think this is the firm foundation on which you can build much better things. And so for that reason, I'm not marching off Twitter, but I'm it's not impinging on any of my Nostr time.
I think what you're doing, which I love, and I actually want to do to a degree as well, is build a bridge.
Yeah.
From Twitter to Nostr.
Yeah.
And I've had the same experience. A lot of my friends or other tech people or whatever, like they're super interested. They don't know how to get started. And I think it's really important that there are bridges like you. And by the way, I know you were joking about this in a chat, but DK really is becoming the chief marketing officer in a way of Nostr. Like seriously, the videos you've been putting out the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to, I'm backlogged. I don't even have time to listen to them all at this point, but they're fantastic. And I think it's so important not only to build that bridge, but also as I think about this, as an investor, right? Like, I don't know this guy, the Zobni guy, but a lot of the builders, my thesis has always been, especially being based here in SF as the only kind of Bitcoin fund in SF, is that as, these builders from whatever Web3 or, AI, as they start realizing, wait a second, Bitcoin, Lightning, and now Nostr are where the real action is going to be. They're still fabulous builders. They're still super smart, great product people. Like they're going to build a lot of the really big companies or projects here.
Yep.
And so, I think it's important for the network. It's important as an investor. It's important for everybody to help build those bridges. So
yeah. And it's surprising, given how much time we spend in sort of Bitcoin land and Lightning land and now Nostr land, it's sort of surprising to think that Silicon Valley doesn't know anything about Nostr.
It's crazy.
Basically, like I was just mentioning, I'm not going to name names, but I was with the managing director of one of the top tier venture capital firms, and just a couple days ago, and sort of in passing, I mentioned I kind of said, I bet you probably never run across Nostr, but anyway, I'm making a bunch of YouTube videos about it. He's like, no, what's that? And I was like, well, it's kind of like a lot of the dreams of what people want to do with crypto broadly. But those dreams get realized,
but it's real
in a way that is more neutral and public domain, and kind of has the right kind of foundational principles. So, I do think of I do like the idea of being a bridge and trying to help be a kind of warm, friendly face. I'm enough of that they can say, "Oh, we've known you forever. You're one of us," but with a perspective that I've gotten through, kind of the time I've spent in this ecosystem. And so hopefully that bridge can help more real builder energy recognize that there are opportunities to build. There's so much great stuff and so many great ways to contribute to this.
100%. And to that note, I don't know if I can announce exactly who this is yet, but one of my portfolio companies, one of my major investments here in SF, and most of my investments are around the world, so it's rare and exciting that I get one locally.
Yeah.
But just got an office, and I think I told you about this. And he's doing some really cool stuff with both Lightning and Nostr.
Yep.
Actually, I don't think you'd mind. It's Danny with DZ. It's really excited about that. And we've already talked about doing a Nostr meetup. So we should totally, plan that, get the first one going, get all these people to come together, meet each other, learn about Nostr.
Totally.
That'd be super fun.
Yeah, I love it. Let's get the word out with people who have the energy to do it. Let's show that there's a place, and let's make a home for it.
Love it.
Because there's so much energy and so much talent, but they just, they have not learned about this thing yet. It's still so early that even all these people who want to build just don't know about it.
Next couple months are going to be crazy.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep making videos. I use the term CMO as a joke, kind of. I think that, everybody should, self-nominate themselves.
Tongue in cheek, but this man is doing a great job.
Chief of their own endeavors.
I like that.
But yeah, there should be many chief marketing officers, chief executive officers, chief technology officers of Nostr, everything.
Chief meme officers, chief Zap officers.
Exactly. The chief Zap officer. So we've got, we've got a few. So we've got Nostrica coming up.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we were chatting a bit. Plans. I know yours are still forming.
So I normally, when I travel, I figure out, I book it about a day before I go.
I like
and I'm
that.
gonna try to do it now it's March 1st. So I want to kind of do it now, today, tomorrow. But I haven't done anything. I only have the admission thing, which I kind of slid in late off the wait list. But I think I have to book a flight. Looks easy. Booking, there's these buses that are gonna transport, and I don't fully understand all of that. I need to dig into the details. And then there's a venue. So we were talking about, should we get a room, a bigger room where we can actually do stuff? Maybe we can even host little sessions or jam sessions.
I think we should. I mean, like I said, I've got a small hotel room now, which we can always use, but I'm down. If anyone has any ideas here, maybe we can get a small place. I don't know if there's anything still available at this point, but I think it would be awesome to bring the gear.
Yeah.
Bring some mics.
Yeah.
Bring some, the cameras, and just do a whole bunch of jam sessions. I mean, everyone's going to be there.
Yeah. Do you think people would, I know some of it has got this NIM privacy side to it, and I certainly don't want to violate any of that.
People. No, I mean, I don't think we should do any just walking around, obviously. But for people that want to opt in to record there, why
so kind of pick a place, have it set up, and then invite people in and kind of
invite people in, and if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. That's totally fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And to be clear, when I say everybody's gonna be there, actually, the majority of people will not be there. A lot of people will be joining in.
A lot of people virtual, right?
Virtual.
Yep.
But still, it should be a really nice critical mass.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So I'm in for it. I think we should do a lot of recording.
All right. Well, I just ordered another mic, so at least we'll have 3.
Woohoo!
And we'll get the headphones and the gear and stuff out there. So I saw all this discussion. Was it McShane? Do you know McShane?
Yeah, he's the Lightning Ventures guy that's kind of organizing it.
Yeah, he's very organizing of the thing. And I think he was talking about musical instruments and jam sessions. Do you know much about what's going on there? Are you bringing instruments? Are you gonna be ready with beatboxing and rapping, or what's?
Funny you mentioned that. So I haven't checked any of the schedule. I signed up to do a couple things. I signed up to do a little talk about this was a while ago. Maybe we can do this together, but about investing in Nostr projects, how I think about that. So I think that's somewhere on there, but I don't know. I have to go back and look. But also I signed up. There's like a place to put your pub key to perform, and hell yeah, I signed up. So It's been a minute since I've performed or rapped. I was a little bummed actually. Last weekend I was supposed to go to La Paz in Mexico to visit my friend, who's like my good buddy, producer, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend's dog got very ill. That was a big scare.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's okay now, but you understand as a dog person,
yeah.
he vomited blood. We were very scared. He's totally fine now. But anyway, so I missed that. Now I'm debating if I'll go this weekend or after Nostrica, but I was kind of hoping to kind of get back in the, get the rap gears turning a little bit.
Right.
But either way, come hell or high water, I will perform something. So
nice.
How about you? Are you going to bring something? Do you play instruments? I didn't know that.
My axe of choice is the piano.
Really?
And those are really hard to take on airplanes.
Well, keyboard. I mean, maybe.
Yeah. It's that with an external amp and gear. It's quite a process.
Okay.
So I hope there's a piano there, but I kind of doubt there's a piano there. But if there's a piano there, I am down.
Let's put the call. If anyone that lives in Costa Rica, for example, that'll be coming, maybe has a keyboard and brings it, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I played piano for like 40 years. I can
really
just do stuff. Yeah. Like we can just hang and play stuff and have fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Dude, we should talk about, I don't know if you've ever, made beats, but piano can be a critical part of that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do a collab.
Yeah. Yeah. I played a little bit. We play up in Mammoth where we have a piano there, and we got a friend who's a really good singer. So we do a lot of piano singing, kind of the whole town comes out and we do little sing-alongs at our place. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
DK has always surprised me. Man of many talents.
It's fun.
Cool.
So good. So hopefully we can do that live in person with more of our Nostr friends.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. I just think the whole thing is going to be amazing. Like, I'm so stoked.
Yeah.
I think all around, just to meet people in person, and just one quick side note here, something that I've been thinking a lot about is what is it that makes Nostr so amazing right now? And I do think that part of it is the architecture. And as Jack has tweeted out, many times, Nostr is punk right now. Mm-hmm. And because of its decentralized architecture, it has the possibility of staying punk.
Yeah.
And I'm always reminded, Julian Casablancas of The Strokes once said, like, why does every big band have to suck? And it's kind of true. And then there's a couple of exceptions. I can think of a few that got big and stayed good. I think Radiohead did.
Yeah.
I think Mos Def, to the degree that he, didn't just like go off the face of the earth.
Right.
Did. A couple people did, but it's super rare. David Bowie. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe this leads to a world where there is just a lot more indie everything. And I think that the more diversity and kind of like appeal you can make to specific niches, the better it is. Having said that, I also realized that maybe that's a little too idealistic. It's probably somewhere in the middle. Like, it's going to be better than our current situation. But part of the magic of Nostr right now, if we're being completely honest, is that it is like it's before the Eternal September. Mm-hmm. And it'll never be as Eternal September as the other sort of internet forums, whatever, because you do have that choice. But, it's cool when you're part of the underground, you're in like kind of a club, like, and inevitably these things will get more mainstream, and it is what it is. But at least for this first Nostrica, what I'm most excited about is the people that we meet there. Yeah, they're going to be into Bitcoin and Nostr, which is great. But to me, that's more of a signal that they're interesting people in general.
Yep.
So these people are going to have, I'm sure, all kinds of interesting ideas around literature, their philosophy, health, nutrition, like whatever. Like, there'll be all kinds of weird little tidbits to pick up. Yeah. And I'm excited about that.
I love the idea of finding the weird, like finding people who are willing to be themselves, even if it doesn't necessarily fit the model that people are looking for.
Yep.
And exploring their own interests and hobbies and passions that don't necessarily fit a box. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that that's what the feel is, and I kind of suspect it will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I think on the technology and architecture, I'm optimistic that it can remain with that feel indefinitely if we get the right tooling within it, right? Like, I think it's part of the thing. It's funny because when I share anything about Nostr with friends, are like, yeah, but it doesn't do X and Y and Z. And it's true. It's early.
Right.
So it's not like everything's solved. The claim is not that at all. The claim is that nothing has been solved except this one really important foundational thing, which is
Right.
like this very simple protocol works. It's enough. And now we can build up all kinds of new things on top of that, but we don't have to compromise the principles of that public domain protocol. Just a simple, agreement about how to publish messages and relay them.
Totally. And I love that. I mean, in fact, I watched your jam with the AI guy, or the
With
AI.
Yonda Ehrlich?
I think so, the Kotu dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yonda.
Anyways, which I want to talk more about some of that stuff later as well. But y'all had this whole like point where he just kept going in on deepfakes. That's what we need to do, is sign images. And you're like, well, you signed the pointer of the image. He's like, but sign the image. And then at some point it's just like, well, you could also sign the image. And it's like, it was a great aha moment for me of like, all these new people that come in are going to have great ideas. And these are all just additional features. Like the protocol is so extensible. You can just add a NIP or just in your client or relay, do that. Like, there's going to be so much cool new shit that gets built.
Yeah. And it's all just, if somebody has a good idea, you just do it. You don't ask for anybody. You don't need an API key. You just do it. And I think that's the magic. I mean, censorship resistance is great. Right. It's not as desperately needed by everybody today, but the flourishing of innovation that can happen when you just have permissionless, anybody can do whatever they want and build whatever they want. That's the stuff that really gets me going. I think censorship resistance is important, but I don't think that's the way that this goes mainstream.
I agree.
I think the way it goes mainstream is you just have all kinds of better experiences and things that serve people's needs much deeper. And then kind of a nice ride along is what's censorship resistance? Nobody controls it.
100%.
All right. So speaking of censorship resistance, we have Bitcoin and Lightning, and now with Nostr we have Zaps.
Yeah.
So this feels like it was like the recent days have been just like Zap mania. So do you want to give us a rundown on like kind of what a Zap is and sort of how it has sort of taken over Nostr?
Man. Okay, first of all, some guy called it, I don't remember who it was. He actually had a typo, which was like a bit unfortunate in the way he said it, but the zappening.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, yesterday, February 28th, 2023, will go down as the zappening. Or maybe it was the day before, I don't know. But basically, JB55, was it a day ago or 2 days ago he made a new release?
Yeah, I think it hit, I don't know, I've been on the test flight, so I haven't.
Same.
I want to say a couple days ago, probably.
So basically, in the last day or two, JB55 released to the general public. Test flights had zapping for a while, and zapping is the ability to tip an individual note from someone with a Lightning payment.
Yep.
And he released that to the general public that's using the app. And all of a sudden, zaps are building. We showed that little chart last time. We called it like VC catnip. And it was just like perfect exponential curve of number of total zaps. And then, of course, stuff starts going parabolic yesterday. Like everyone starts zapping. Now, we can talk about a lot of stuff. We'll look at the data, but I just want to talk about my personal experience with it first and then hear about yours.
Yeah.
So as I've mentioned many times, I actually actively try and stay off of these things like Twitter and stuff, because it can become an addiction, right? And I've noticed in the last 2 days, for better and for worse, I've started getting way more addicted than I ever have been to any social media, which again, I actually don't love, but it's so much fun to zap. And I think I just started doing a couple of zaps. And by the way, I think the zapping experience in Damus is still not great, because every time, the way that the current user interface works is you click a note, you click zap, you have to select an amount or type in a custom amount, then write a note. And then once you click zap, then you have to go to a wallet selector, choose the wallet, approve the payment. It's just like so many fucking steps. We need to get to one click zap like you can with Albi on web browsers or web clients. And we'll get there, I'm sure. I don't know exactly how it's going to look. I need to get this as just a step. But even with all of that friction, I was like, oh, I'll send a zap or two, see how it goes. I'd probably, I don't know, send 25 zap. I don't know. Like I've been zapping like crazy. Anytime I say a good note. And what's interesting is, one, it makes me keep checking things more, because it makes me, it's doing so much to my psyche right now. Like the first thing is, every time I see someone that does something good, I want to give them some love. And all of a sudden it starts feeling like, I don't want to be cheap either. You know what I mean? Like, if I really like something, it's like, I don't want to just give them a little fucking this thing. Like I want to, okay, here's a dollar, a couple dollars, $10 even if it's really good. And it feels great. It's like, first of all, I think that's an interesting kind of discovery, is like giving is certainly in some ways more exciting than receiving. I think that's like a general truism that you kind of start realizing. But then what I think is even more exciting in some ways is like, you just get this incredible, like, flush when you start receiving zaps from other people with comments. Now, zaps by themselves are cool, But what I found I'm getting addicted to is reading the comments, and the comment feels so much stronger when it's attached to real money.
Yep.
And like, I mean, I'll just give you an example. Yesterday, I posted, some guy, I think it was Pablo Vaz or whatever, said he discovered this dashboard from Clark Moody, which is a really good Bitcoin dashboard. He clicked on there. He said, I only discovered it because someone zapped at 50,000 sats. They clearly got value out of this. I commented back and tagged you and Artur and Kian and a few other friends. Value rank is working. The idea that like zaps are surfacing better information quality, which is this idea of how to disrupt Google, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And you and Ryan both zapped me back. You zapped back value rank with this like little like Gen Z symbol thing, which I like.
Like the chef's kiss. Mwah.
Mwah. Ryan zapped me back a brain, which was like very like gratifying to me, like for someone you respect to like.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've never felt that way with a comment before.
Right.
It felt exciting. Like, and then the cool thing is because my NIT57 wallet on Damus right now is tied to Albi. I can go to my Albi extension and look at incoming, and I just get this stream of comments and zaps, and it's so fucking cool.
Yep. And do the comments show up in Albi as like whatever? I think it's a description within a Lightning payment. Is that what's being used to proxy that so that Albi can read it and then present it to you?
That's right. And so I think of all of the wallets out there, Albi probably is the best interface for this right now. They also have, I don't know if it's integrated yet, but they have this whole thing called, I'll have to remember the name. It's like, I'll have to go back and find it, but it's essentially an analytics dashboard where they built it pre-Nostr for value podcasters that were receiving tips with their podcast. And basically you can just log in with your Albi account. And if you're using their API, it's a nice way. It shows you when all of your tips were received or your payments were received, all the comments. And so you can do it. What I look at right now is in the browser extension, but you can also go to whatever that site is, which we can find, and I'll share it next time. And yeah, it's like your own little personal analytics page. It's cool.
Right. And so when I get these things with a note on it, I feel like I want to reply and thank, but then I kind of can't, right? So in a sense, a zap is a little bit of a dead end. So should a zap, I mean, if a zap is going to contain a message, should you be able to reply to a zap? And then is it really that different than a note? Or like how, it feels like there's a lot of UX to explore there. Because I wouldn't want to see all of the zaps as notes in a core feed, but I do feel like if I say something, and I think I tweeted about, I think this program that we were recording, and I tagged you, and I think you zapped me on that.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
And I'd like to be able to reply and give you a bow emoji or thank you or something. And right now I feel like it's a little bit, the way the UI works, it's a little bit of like a dead end. I mean, it's thank you, but also like I want to thank you back,
right?
Whether it's a zap back or a message back, message of thanks. When some of these big zap bombs come, maybe you'd want to be like, hey, great, I'm going to pass it on. And kind of appreciate and share what your intention is.
Totally. And well, I mean, you're sparking so many ideas for me right there. The first thing I would say is maybe everything gets generalized as a note. Like, why not? Yeah, I mean, I would, and maybe in the future, every note has to have some payment with like maybe just simple resistance, like a single Satoshi. I don't know if that's a good idea or bad. I haven't really thought about that, but I do think that as a general principle, when I see a note that comes attached to a Satoshi payment, I give it a lot more weight. And so threads that are attached to Satoshis, like I don't see like why I shouldn't be able to respond back to you and also like bow or like, yeah, absolutely. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to surface. I don't know how like the core developers will think about if that's generalizable to everything being a note. I don't know.
Right. It seems like the kind of thing which works. It's one of this idea that we're struggling with is kind of a demonstration of why infinite openness of like, let a lot of people bang on a lot of different attempts at it, and we'll say, oh, this one kind of makes more sense. Can we adopt this and get it out to everybody? Or I like kind of what they're doing over here, but I wish it were a little bit more like this one. And so we start to play with these and kind of remix them and try out everything. And then once an innovation is like, oh, that's actually a great way to do it, that just gets adopted by everybody. So
100%. I think what's very clear to me at this point is zaps have product market fit.
Yeah.
People love it. They love it. People are the people that want to help the network spread, like you, who've been doing payments for a long time. Jack, that dude's on there just dropping like, I saw him, he tipped you like, or zapped you 50K Satoshi. I mean, just, and imagine you're a new user coming on there. You don't know what Bitcoin Lightning are. Some of these people you talked about, Silicon Valley friends or whatever, or people, imagine some kid in Africa, in Nigeria signs up.
Oh yeah.
What is this thing? I just got zapped 50,000. That's like $10.
Yeah.
Or some kid in El Salvador, like, holy shit. That's real money.
Yeah. And as the network grows and as the distribution of these things grow, I mean, you can imagine algorithms that figure those things out and help them surface for people who want to see, maybe there's somebody who's in El Salvador who makes jazz music and you want to just follow that as a concept. And so if there's one that's getting some momentum, you want to be able to see that and also contribute, consume it, contribute, and participate. And it just unlocks so much new. I mean, there's just like infinite innovation ahead here.
Totally. And I mean, a couple other things that just popped to mind. One, I'm starting to see a bunch of these bots that you can just, I guess, contribute to, and they just zap people. I don't know if it's at random or they have some algorithm. Like, I could imagine, like, it'd be cool just to be like, okay, I want to take, whatever, 1 million sats or something.
Yeah.
Donate it to a bot or a fund that's going to specifically zap people from emerging markets coming on board.
Yep.
That sounds really cool.
Yep.
Just like how do you do that? And
kind of like, have you seen Bitcoinbull?
I've heard about.
He does this stuff. He does this. I don't know. I haven't seen him around in a few days at least, but he was kind of welcome wagon where somebody comes in and he like coaches them through how to do it, or if they get an invoice issued, then he'll like pay them a little bit, So he has like almost more donations coming to him to try to disperse, because I think a lot of people have the energy and appetite to onboard and welcome new users, but
totally.
You also don't want to do things fully automated where just like, people would end up, probably creating like, bots that just harvest all of the goodwill out of the thing, and you want it to be real people or have some sort of indication that it's real people, some minor proof of work, let's say.
What would be super cool is imagine you go to a community, even better if a community that already has Bitcoin merchants.
Yeah.
So that could be Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. It could be Bitcoin Island in the Philippines as 2 examples, or there's one in South Africa as well. And imagine you could just find like 1 or 2 local people you trust.
Yep.
And you just say, hey, here's 1 million sats. We want you to just sign up anyone you know on Nostr.
Yep.
Help them follow people and zap them.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the idea.
I love it.
If there are people out there that want to make this happen, maybe we can do that. Exactly. Ambassadors.
Yeah. It's kind of like Bitcoin ambassadors, Nostr ambassadors, Lightning ambassadors.
I love that. And actually, now that you're talking about that, I don't know if you know this, but at the company where I joined as the first hire, Bright, which is the solar company in Mexico, so where I live down there, I spent years actually. All we did was build ambassador programs to sell solar in Mexico. And then briefly we experimented with doing something very similar, but this was pre-Lightning, so it was kind of tricky, but with Bitso in Mexico for Bitcoin as well. And we actually, I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, we gave a whole bunch of like sort of lectures about Bitcoin, why it was important. And we got Bitso and Give Crypto, which is Coinbase's nonprofit, which I know has some interesting ramifications. But back in those days, I think we gave away a full Bitcoin. It was only at $4,000 back then. But in order to give it away, people had to come and learn. And then there's like a matching program where if they put in a little bit, we put in a little bit more. So they had some skin in the game too. And it was a really cool way to like start building. And then it was often like university students that would bring their parents, then the whole family gets on board. There's a lot of cool stuff that could be done here. Maybe I'll scratch my head more about a Bitcoin ambassador program. I think that sounds super fucking fun.
Yeah. And I mean, there's both the in-person ambassador as well as on Nostr ambassador, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do that. And I think it's just like, let's open it up. Creativity, let it go.
I love it.
So we
also one last thing I want to put on there is there's a feature on StackerNews which I really like. I don't know if Nostr, if Damus or anyone has implemented this yet, but the ability to forward tips or forward sats.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I on StackerNews I've seen it. I don't know that it's on Damus or anywhere in the Nostr ecosystem yet, but yeah, I think it's
that would be a really cool feature too.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to do this the other day. Actually, on Nostr, I wanted to be able to, like, if I post about a news show that we're doing together and tag you, I'd like to be able to sort of split the tips, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like Fountain touches on this a little bit.
Yeah.
StackerNews does the forwarding tips, but that, like, how should these tip concepts work in this environment, I think is really, exciting, in uncharted territory. So it's a lot of experimentation. The other thing is I'm curious about how I think tips are, just a great mechanism to play, And I think that's what we should be doing today. We should just be playing and having fun and trying things out. I think once you get like super serious and super use case oriented, it kind of loses the fun and the energy, and people, I think people will have a different sensibility when it comes to that. But I would, I do think that it's an escalation of the core tip concept. Like I think tips, and even somebody, did you see? I had mentioned the word tips, and I
saw
think
that
one
on
of my,
Fountain.
Did you mention that, or somebody else mentioned it?
Someone else mentioned you not to call it.
Somebody's like, don't call it a tip because that like cheapens it, and call it value for value. And I can recognize that the tip concept may feel cheap to some people. I think it's fine for play, but I also think that there's like some sort of maybe content unlocking that could be done. Maybe not today, but I wonder what do those UIs and UXs look like? Because the tipping UX today, we've talked about how it's fraught with a few hangups, and like choose the amount and open the other wallet and blah blah. Like there's some problems, and I think there's lots of improvements that can be made, and I don't know all of them. But imagine like a future where we actually can create our own content, and maybe a lot of it is free, but then maybe some of it is paywalled behind a 5 Satoshi donation or contribution. Maybe there's ways around it, but like, what does that world look like? Does that happen at the client layers? Are there like media servers that serve those things with like tip gated or kind of donation or paywall gated content? But it's not like the New York Times sign up for a monthly subscription. That model is not, I mean, it's old, and I don't think it's going to change a lot. I don't think you're going to just convince, all these mainstream media publications to come on and start accepting it. I think it starts ground up, and I think it's like grassroots. There's people who aren't doing it today who then become creators in this way, and these new tools actually help these new use cases and new types of creation emerge.
Totally. I think, so I do think that, quote unquote tipping or busking, as GG calls, I think it can be a pretty big industry on its own, but I agree with you. There will be brand new models. I think we mentioned this in a podcast a couple of episodes ago. And I actually think it was with in a conversation with Gigi that I was thinking about this for the first time. I think one way this could work, so information wants to be free, and maybe you can paywall it for $1 or whatever, and assume if you really care enough, you can
Shout out to Kevin Kelly.
Shout out to Kevin Kelly, baby. Kevin Kelly, exactly. His 1,000 true fan thesis, by the way, was like kind of true in a fiat world, but in a global micropayments world, it's about to be super true. If you haven't read that essay, 1,000 true fans, incredibly prescient. I think it was just missing Bitcoin Lightning. In fact, a dream for me would be if we could get Kevin Kelly on here.
Yeah. Well, we'll
and hear what he says.
Yeah.
Anyways, totally one of my heroes. But what I think is interesting with information, it wants to be free, it will be free, but you can have a delay. Like the time to get that information can still be protected a little bit. And so what I could see happening is, if you're a content creator, and I remember a couple of weeks ago, Lynn Alden dropped an article on Nostr a day before she did on Twitter. And so what I could see happening is maybe you have, 2 sets of relays. You have your general relays, and then you have a paywalled, monthly subscription or pay per read private relay. And you publish the article first. Maybe let's say you have, like her, she has some public articles, some private articles. Maybe you publish the public articles everywhere. And the private articles you post first to your private relay that's paywalled. And then a day later, you just assume, or you like release it to everyone else, or you assume it's going to get sucked up or whatever.
Yeah, totally. So I think you're really touching on this idea. Is this the one you're talking about, better than free?
No, I was talking about 1,000 true fans. I was talking about this one, but that one's great too.
Have you read this one?
A long time ago.
So this touches on a lot of those themes. So this is Better Than Free by Kevin Kelly at the Technium, kk.org. I love this idea because it touches on a lot of the themes. I mean, he wrote this, I think, 2008 or something. It's a long time ago.
This guy's always ahead of the curve.
But it talks about how the internet is a copy machine, and so everything is basically free, and any information would be free. And so, in a world where information is free, what kinds of things are not free? And so he says, when copies are free, you need to sell things which cannot be copied. And so he has 8 generatives that are better than free.
Oh, that's amazing.
So immediacy is the one you're talking about from the Lynn Alden, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you can get it right now versus a day later or a week later, that's immediacy. Personalization.
Yeah.
So he says, a generic version of a concert recording may be free, but if you want a copy that has been tweaked to sound perfect in your particular living room.
Oh my God.
Right? Interpretation. So as the old joke goes, software free. The manual $10,000.
I love it.
Right? So different ways to sort of serve, educate, assist in that. Authenticity. And he talks about you might be able to grab a key software application for free, but even if you don't need a manual, you might like to be sure it is bug-free, reliable, and warranted. So it's a little bit touches on some of the themes that people are excited about around NFTs, some sort of digital scarcity or authenticity. He talks about accessibility, embodiment, patronage, and findability. So all of these are things that I think are worthy of consideration, because he wrote that, I think 2008. So I think it's pre-digital scarcity invention. And now that we have digital scarcity, and now we have a communication network where content is flowing.
Oh my God.
I think it's worth revisiting each of the Kevin Kelly points and, thinking about how he's making mostly content-oriented ideas.
Totally.
But in a world, he was writing that in a world where we hadn't yet invented digital scarcity, and now we have it.
I mean, I think, I know I went on a little love fest with him last week, but like the dude, I mean, he's highly rated, but it's still so underrated. Like everything he's written is like modern. Like I go back, I'm still rereading Out of Control right now, which I go back and reread. That was published in the mid 90s.
Yep.
Maybe. And it still reads like it was something written today. And it touches on a lot of these big topics around coevolution. And the guy just sees so many steps ahead. But anyways, I 100% agree with you. And actually, I'm going to go back and reread this article. But if I could also show.
Okay, wait, let me pull it up on screen so we can see it.
Okay.
So we're going to pull here, and you wanted to look at which one?
This is the other one that I highly recommend everyone read. This basically, the concept was, if you can get 1,000 fans that buy whatever it is you produce, if you're an artist, let's say a musician, and they buy every single concert ticket, every album that you drop, you're good. Mm-hmm. You could, let's say on average, you can get about $1,000 a year from them, or, I guess $100 a year from them. Then you can get to $100,000. Like, how can you get to like a good livable income, not like a barely survive wage?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, again, that kind of worked for some people in the internet age, kind of.
Right.
But without Bitcoin and Lightning, you had a very limited group of people that could donate to you or could buy your stuff.
Yep.
The kinds of models you could play with were a lot more limited. So I think his 1,000 True Fans thing is about to be 1,000 times more true.
Yeah. That's a good point. And if I recall, I haven't reread that in probably a decade, but my recollection of it was that it's kind of thinks about a touring musician who might be selling a bunch of merch at a concert. And so it has this like rooting in the physical world. Mm-hmm. And that rooting is very natural and normal for those models that existed, kind of in a mostly pre Spotify, definitely pre Bitcoin era, if I recall correctly. I want to find out what the date is. But he's talking about long tail, which is which is kind of cool. Yeah, this was March 4th, 2008.
Damn.
But the 1,000 True Fans idea maybe should be revisited now that we have like content online and payments are basically free between parties, which was not the case. He was like writing this without the assumption that you can do instant global payments. And now we have a communication network that can integrate instant global payments. Like, what is the right answer that maybe you don't even need? You need a bunch of true fans, but maybe it's like maybe it's got like all kinds of different contours. I don't know. Like, I could imagine maybe having 1,000 true fans, but maybe having like 10,000 people who've seen one thing, or let's say 1 million people who've seen one thing that you've made, and they each say that's cool enough, I'm going to give you $1 for it.
Yeah.
And now you're totally changing lives, even of a US based person. That can like be meaningful to change somebody's life situation, their future creative work and output, and it can be just from like one magic moment of a hit that you create that really resonates with people.
100%. And I'm excited now. I mean, especially now to see you obviously creating all this incredible content, but getting on the Value for Value podcast and stuff. Like, maybe you'll be able to prove this.
Well, yeah, I don't know that my stuff is going to be as mass market as
Dude, you're blowing up, man. Like you I saw you thanked the Academy last week at 420 subscribers.
That's right.
Why not? Why not? If Nostr goes mainstream, I see it.
Well, we'll have fun playing on Nostr for now. That'll be good enough. It's good enough for me.
Stat time.
All right, let's hit the stats.
Cool.
So first up, we'll pop over to Nostr.band, and we're about halfway down the page or more. Mm-hmm. And these are total zaps. You want to talk about kind of what's going on here? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, let's see. I think the blue is just zaps, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
we can pop off all these ones, and we'll just look. We're just looking at total zaps numbers, and so that's 85,108, and that's total over time, right? So this is summing up.
But just look in the last 2 days. Like 2 days ago, where were we at?
Yeah. So 2 days ago, at 62,000, we added another 70, almost 70. We're at 75,000. So from 63 to 75, call it. So 12.
Yeah. Or like, look, in 2 days, let's say by the end of the day, I'll probably get to at least 90. In 2 days, you grew 50%.
Yep. And then 75 to 85, and we're in a partial day.
Yeah.
So almost certainly we're going to exceed that.
Exactly.
So zaps are working.
Yes.
We have the daily zaps. This is kind of, you can see the sort of per day. Yeah. So this is the 12,000. We're at about 10,000 today. Numbers are obviously all up. They're, small on a global scale, but it's really happening.
Totally.
And so all these dreams and ambitions of what this can serve are, just around the corner now.
Coming to fruition.
Yeah. Daily zap amounts. Was there something else in here that we wanted to
Yeah, I also thought it was just interesting to look at the zap amount. Yeah, maybe go back up to zap amount. Just
daily
curious.
zap amounts? Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Does he have? Yeah, I actually think it'd be interesting to see the average zap amount and then the max as well. So do maybe one by one.
Okay, so we're looking at first the average zap amount.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting because obviously number of zaps is going up. I think the average is going down a little bit, which probably makes sense as more people are.
Yeah, more people are coming on and playing around with it.
But then I also want to take a look at just the max zap because I think that matters too.
So the max zap amount. So what is the biggest?
There's
been a 3 million zap.
And I think this is an important point, and you can see in the last couple of days, it's probably been 1 million. Yeah, someone's sending like 1 million.
Yep.
Zap every day at least.
Yep.
And I think that's important because this is a point that Adam Curry made on a podcast with Oscar Mary, founder of Fountain, and some other guys talking about value for value. Is we were just talking about how you shouldn't call these things tips, right. And his point was look, if someone tips you 3 million sats, that's not a tip. That's a real amount of money. I don't know, what would that be like, $600 or something.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's not a tip, right?
Right.
And some people, I've heard of, and we haven't seen it yet, but you will eventually see 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah. Why haven't we seen that yet?
I think there's a bunch of reasons. For one thing,
even in the wash zapping example, nobody's done that yet.
Not that I've seen.
Should we be the first?
Maybe we should. Actually, that would be interesting, little footnote in the history book. I think there's a couple of issues. One, sending 1 Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. I actually have never sent that much, ever. And I think some channels could certainly handle it. But, that's what, 20-something K. I've heard from one of my portfolio companies that they've had issues, doing 6 figures in Lightning channels. The capacity is just not there yet.
And so what would happen if let's say I loaded up a Lightning wallet with 100,000 sats?
We can try. Well, it wouldn't be 100,000.
Sorry, 100 million. Sorry, yeah.
Exactly.
100 million sats, and then I try to send it to you. Would I get an error in the interface, or what? How does that work?
Well, it depends on your channel connections. There are channels that could certainly do it, but you have to make sure that you're connected to those. So if you're connected to DZ, they could probably handle that kind of volume. But think of it like this. It matters not only their centrality and the size of their channels, but the volume and the weighting that's happening in real time. Wallet of Satoshi, they have pretty fat channels. I think they're the number 1 Lightning Labs ranked node. DZ's number 2 right now. But they also have so many connections and there's so much flow. I know they were breaking a couple of days ago. And so I don't know. I actually don't know if they could do a 1 Bitcoin zap yet or not. Probably some of those channels can. But if you try to do a 5 Bitcoin zap or a 10 Bitcoin zap, probably not. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if someone's seen this and tested it, great. So I think in general, when you see someone seeing that big of a payment, it's still happening on chain today. As the Lightning Network continues, the channel size continue to increase. I think you'll start to see that more on Lightning. Today, it probably still makes more sense to send that on chain, especially if fees are pretty low. Like it might still be cheaper to do that on chain. I don't know if someone's done the analysis yet, like when it becomes cheaper to do a 1 Bitcoin payment on chain versus Lightning.
Right.
So to do it today, you're probably doing it, even if you are getting savings, it's probably not that much. And so if you're doing it, it's probably just to be like, can I do it?
Right. Well, that's what I was proposing. Like, can you do it? I'm curious. Can it be done?
Let's see. Maybe we can watch Zap a Bitcoin.
Or orchestrate a little wash zapping.
Yeah.
The other thing I proposed yesterday that we should have a name for this moment when, if you take 21 million Bitcoin and 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin, you multiply that, you get e to the 15th, I think.
A lot.
And so at some point, that whole like value of the entire Bitcoin network will have turned over in a mechanism like this, right? Like, so what should that day be called?
Ooh.
It should be like a milestone that we celebrate, right?
I like that.
I mean, it's a long ways off. I don't think it's happening like in the next week or two.
Maybe that's the real zappening. Well, actually, just like a random total aside, I don't know if you've thought about this or if you have an opinion. 21 million Bitcoin in existence, call it, I don't know, 4 or 5 million of those are probably dead forever. Maybe 3 million. I don't know. 3 to 5 million are probably gone forever. What percent, let's just call 17 to 18. Let's say there's 18 to be conservative, at least a million sats left. What percent? Bitcoin, yeah. It's not sats, thank you. What percentage of that ends up in the Lightning Network?
And when you say ends up, meaning like...
Let's say, I'll be very specific. In 10 years from now, I'd be curious, 10 years and 100 years. 10 years and 100 years, how much of that Bitcoin is actively held in Lightning channels versus in cold storage?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of questions around... I mean, yeah, it starts to make me wonder, like, how much is store of value use case? How much is... kind of the daily payments use case, and sort of how does that evolve? But I guess it's gonna shift a lot over time as more payment use cases emerge, and as more of the store of value feature of the world's assets and wealth and value kind of move into the store of value of Bitcoin. So probably like there's so many kind of headwinds and tailwinds to each of those.
Exactly.
That it's kind of a little bit of a, it's a nice thought experiment. I don't know if I have much of a prediction on that.
I'll just randomly throw out 10% and 50%. Like 10% initially in 10 years, and maybe it's more than that, just for payments. And then obviously a lot.
So saying 10% would be in Lightning channels. 10% of the Bitcoin network at any given time is in a Lightning channel.
Yeah. And then I could see maybe in 100 years, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just like thinking about this live, but maybe it's like 50% or it's like so much higher as more, as sats get redistributed. Because another way of thinking about it is, and again, there's I can make arguments either way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the way I think about with Bitcoin is that part of the magic of Bitcoin, why it's a better economic system, is obviously you can't just print new Bitcoin if you're close to the money printer.
Right.
Now, some critics will come back and say, sure, but the distribution of Bitcoin is such that there are a couple of whales that hold the vast majority. And that's probably true. I mean, I'm sure there's like, studies that have data analysis that have shown that. But those people over generations, I mean, they'll take good care of it, but they'll die. And then typically by the third generation of wealth, a lot of times you forget what it took to make the wealth and you're irresponsible. So I do think sats get redistributed to more people over time.
Right.
Even if you do a good job protecting it, you don't know if your grandkids are going to be responsible or prudent. Like, it's hard to know that stuff. And so I could see a world where maybe sats get more distributed to more and more people globally as many generations go on. Right. Now, you could also push back and be like, well, there's going to be more foundations that just gobble it up, and it's not going to be individuals. And those foundations are institutions like Harvard or Yale and Stanford. And so I don't know. I could go back and forth, but I do think my initial hunch is that over time, more will go in Lightning.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I could see that. But this is a Nostr show.
Yeah, I know. Well, and as Nostr takes off and people start using Lightning more, like that also I think is very bullish on the case of putting Bitcoin in there. And again, we'll talk more about this with the Breez LSP thing, but like it's always been the case that as you have like, okay, here's why I feel stronger in that conviction. As Nostr takes off, I'm increasingly convicted that Nostr is why Lightning goes mainstream for all kinds of reasons, for tipping or zapping, for paying for the scarce resources, for the marketplaces, for all of that stuff.
Yep.
And then as that increases Lightning usage because of Nostr, then the nodes, the big routing nodes, earn more fees. The more money is slushing back and forth in the money tubes.
Yep.
The more they earn fees, it's a feedback loop, because the more they earn fees, the more, basically the higher APY you get for parking your money in a node. And so the more demand there is for payments and real economic usage, the higher the APY goes. The higher the APY goes, eventually you look at your Bitcoin in cold storage and go, I get it, it's safe here. But if I put it in that node, I'm getting 2% a year. And now it's 3%. Maybe that's not enough. But at 4%, okay, now I'm starting to think that's real.
Right.
So that's the natural, real rate of return on capital. That's like all the crap we do, like made up with the Fed today.
Yeah.
That will happen like based on user demand. If demand goes down, APY goes down, more Bitcoin goes cold storage. If demand goes up, APY goes up, more Bitcoin comes in the nodes.
Yep. So it's kind of it'll open it up to a market force, but it won't be somebody's decision about how kind of those rates work. Those rates will be just more defined by the market.
They'll be defined by user demand. Yeah.
That's cool.
The future of interest rates, baby. Real interest rates, not this crap.
This crap that doesn't it like exclude real estate or healthcare, all kinds of stuff.
Such a joke.
So where we were looking at
Sorry, I know, totally went off topic there.
We're looking at some stats here on the nostr.band. Do you want to pop over here to the zapped tab here? So I'm going to actually refresh it and probably turn up something new.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So we've got find new people. These are people who are receiving zaps. This is like a post from Tatum Turnup that got a GN. I guess it was a link to some JPEG, and it got 2 million zaps.
What was it a link to?
Let's see if we can do this.
It says, bro, Jack and Will got you.
Jack, invalid address. Oh, so maybe he had put maybe he had an invalid Lightning address and Jack was trying to tip him or something.
Oh, and then they just like zapped the hell out of him.
Yeah. Here's one from Jack that got, he said, 82 1 million sat Lightning left to go. That one got 1.2 million.
This is him just like tipping. Jack, by the way, if anyone's missed this, has just been like dropping sat bombs.
Yeah. It's like anything interesting going on, and he's just like ripping through.
I love it.
The zaps.
It's making me want to step up my game.
I know, right?
And by the way, if anyone's curious, like this is all ranked by like the number of Satoshis tipped each note.
Right. So this is using the Arthur's trust rank algorithm paired with.
Well, we should ask, and Artur, if you're listening to this, maybe you can clarify. I don't know if this site or this specific tab is pure sats. I think this one might be pure sats. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's implemented trust rank yet, which would also include who the zaps are coming from as a weight.
Got it.
Sure.
But it's got some sort of decay function around time, I assume.
I would assume, but yeah, I don't know that either.
Cool. So we don't know much about it, but it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. We know that things that are getting zapped a lot are
things are getting zapped. And I think this is another take. So zaplife.lol is another take on some similar concepts that we were just looking at, but obviously a bit different too. So there's 1.5 million-ish sats zapped in the last 4 hours.
Wow.
And actually, this is updating real time, so you're just seeing these things pop in. I'm not even refreshing the page. I think it's just coming in. These are zaps. We can look at the nostriches, and we can see the top zapped nostriches. So JB55 is the user who has received the most zaps, and he got 155,000 sats. Is that in the last 4 hours?
Yeah, I guess.
Wow. And then the top zapper.
That's like real, starting to get real.
So we know JB55 is Satsy, a well-known Nostrich.
I don't know her personally, but I think she's like a well-known Bitcoin dev who's probably known Nostr.
Got it. Nice. Yeah, so people are putting up
Let's
real
go, Jack.
Here. Yeah. Odell, Vitor Pamplona.
Yeah.
I made a little video about his amethyst because people are always asking, like, how do you do, like, you're always talking about Damus, but when Damus Android? And so I went out and did some research and made a video. So Vitor made amethyst, right?
Yeah.
And have you used it yet?
I have not.
I haven't. I need to get an Android device so I can play with it.
Have you done a video with him?
No.
No. Well,
I saw he just showed up on Kevin Rook's podcast, right?
Oh, amazing.
Like yesterday or something.
Yeah. Cool.
But I haven't listened to the episode yet. Need to get that one. But yeah, we should also get him here. sure there's lots to
By
talk
the way,
about.
shout out, DK did a podcast with Kevin Rook that was really good if y'all haven't listened.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I now that we're talking about Kevin Kelly though, I'm like, I feel like I botched the book question.
Oh yeah.
It was like lightning round. He's like, what's your favorite book? And I was like,
To be fair, Sovereign Individual is really good.
It's good, but it feels so trite to talk about that in this crowd. But I was just like, this is what makes sense in this context. But the Kevin Kelly stuff is just like timeless and actually touches on some of those same like future, like the thing about Sovereign Individual, I think is amazing how prescient it was written. I want to say, was it?
It was like late 90s.
Late 90s, I think. That sounds right. And, sort of predicted Bitcoin, a decade ahead. And I feel like that's kind of like these Kevin Kelly blog posts, and many of which turned into books in their own right, are also kind of 10 years ahead.
At least. But it's not
15,
just that.
20,
like his books, like I'm telling you, I actually got for a lot of my founders this year, his book Out of Control. Mm-hmm. That was before Sovereign Individual, like mid 90s, early 90s even. Mm-hmm. I think it was mid 90s. And it reads like it was written yesterday.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I am curious, just as one random other aside, even though I know this is Nostr show or whatever, but how much of the Sovereign Individual stuff do you think comes true? And what I mean by that is like a lot of things are happening right now before our eyes. We have digital e-money. Yep. That's like completely non-sovereign. You're starting to see some people reform where they live. A lot of Bitcoiners down in Costa Rica now, El Salvador. That's happening a little bit. That's probably going to continue. How much, but obviously like you and I are still here in California. Yeah. How much do you think their vision, like everyone just goes off and does their own thing and rebuilds societies, or like the Balaji vision, even, which is not necessarily sovereign individual, but we're going to build a new nation state together versus, I don't know, something else.
Yeah. I mean, with technology, I like the perspective of always saying like, everything works eventually. Yeah. And, all of these ideas, you sort of look at any science fiction and, the themes that they touch on about like what might be done someday, I think will all end up in the fullness of time, end up happening, to some extent and, some flavor of it. Actually reminds me of, have you read Hail Mary?
No, but I love the name.
It's the one by the guy who wrote The Martian. You know The Martian?
No. Oh, I've heard of this. They made a movie out of it. I didn't see it, but I did see it. I didn't read it though.
It's kind of a cool, kind of futurist idea, but I think the guy was like a software engineer, and then he started like writing up little bits and pieces of this book, and I think it kind of took off on Reddit, and then like I think my understanding, and I don't have the whole history on this, but my understanding is like within a subreddit, he kind of like designed the idea and fact checked the science behind all of the ideas in The Martian.
Cool.
And then he did a follow-up called Hail Mary, which is about this astrophage, kind of almost like a pandemic that takes over the earth, and he has to fly away and kind of, save humanity. But anyway, all of that is to say, a little bit of tangent, but all of that is to say, I think like all of these ideas, come to pass in some form. And so I don't think anything's like just totally impossible, but it's really just a question of timing. And so what aspects of sovereign individual are going to happen like now or now-ish or soon, that they're like going to be close enough in our lifetimes that that they're sort of worth our time to try to prosecute and digest. I think living in other places, I think like COVID, I think was a major accelerant to that idea, because it was enough of a cultural catalyst to make it acceptable for remote work, for kind of information work, which then sets trends for a lot of others. So I think we're starting to see that. We haven't really seen how like new nation states get formed or new cities get formed that turn into their own kind of sovereign locations in a way. And I mean, whenever thinking about these future things, I think it's really easy to get the headlines right.
Right.
And then it's hard to get the like, well, what happens when things don't go according to plan?
Right.
Right. And how do you, like, all of these ideas should be tested against like what can go wrong, just, not from a pessimistic standpoint, but just so that you can make sure that you're building the systems and the rails and the principles that could flourish.
Yeah.
Right. And that you're sort of going into it with eyes wide open instead of having these like unintended side effect consequences that, if we'd only thought about that. You know? It's like, if we'd only thought that these bored apes might not.
You mean to tell me like something where the database is going like this in size may not scale? Distributed? Really?
But enough on on that tangent.
Cool.
I think you wanted to look at the Lightning tip bot, right?
Oh yeah, this was
what's going on here.
Yeah, from Cali, or the other day someone was talking about living in Colombia and potentially call him f.k.a, which is what I always thought it was too. Mm-hmm. His bot, Ellen Tip Bot, it basically just shows, once Zaps got introduced there, the number of payments has just increased dramatically. And so the new all-time high was yesterday. It'll probably be a new one today, I would imagine. But this was just nice because it was one wallet sharing their data, but I'm sure this is true for Wallet of Satoshi, probably Moon, Breez, all of them, I would imagine.
Yeah, I saw, I think Kevin Rook shared did you see his diagram? He shared a diagram that showed...
He shares a lot of good diagrams.
He shared one about Wallet of Satoshi, and I think he said, January, February of just like, totally dominated the, any of the business they'd done the last year or two before or something.
And I will say also, I mean, a couple of my other report goes, what's interesting, I really feel like, with Nostr, with Ordinals, and with just like traditional Lightning payments, like another one sent me their update today and like, grew almost 80% month over month without Nostr. Mm-hmm. So this was just for Lightning payments. I really feel like with all of this, it's like a perfect storm. Yeah. The next quarter is just going to be wild.
Yep. Yeah. The quarters that come will all surprise us again and again.
Each one will be like, and we've been saying this for years, and now it's happening. So
yeah. All right. Next up, I want to talk the fiatjaf Nostr fund. So he published this 27th. So that was 2 days ago, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit of a report on how Jack's money is being spent.
I love how just direct he is.
He had a Google Doc about it, but it talks about some of the ways, they've sort of been thinking about, there's this donation that Jack made of 14 Bitcoin. I think it was mid-December, if I recall. Mm-hmm. And then he started talking about how they've decided to use it and how they're thinking about that. And I think, some of the writing that he's done in notes, I think talk about how this is meant to not necessarily, it's not meant to compensate people for all of their effort. It's more meant to like try to give some guidance toward things that, they have observed may be useful, and maybe it would help you decide to spend your time on this instead of, a roller coaster video game, I think he said.
Although I remember he put in there are other pros to building a roller coaster video game.
Okay. Yeah, you saw that one too then. So some things for inspiration. So, I think one of the things that were, probably everybody around this, I think a lot of people are saying, Nostr is for building Twitter clones. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it's good at that. And that's a great first use case because it's a water cooler for us to gather around. But then what else? Yep. And some of the things we've talked about are like, how does search and information retrieval change? I think there's the idea of like, what's it called? The wallet scrutiny, mm-hmm. Kind of how does commenting system on a blog or other product change? I think those are all still kind of similar in nature to kind of like social-ish types of things. And then, there's GitHub built on, a GitHub built as a Nostr experience, I think is an interesting one. So fiatjaf was proposing a few things that he was suggesting. He's calling these microapps. So these are Nostr apps that do one thing and do it well. Mm-hmm. And so I think this idea of, I think a few of these are interesting because instead of thinking of it as like, hey, I'm going to build a whole Twitter clone, there's actually a lot of value to say an app for just publishing things and reading replies. Like it just does that. It doesn't have all of the other features for discovering and managing your profile. And like it's just more like a reading app, right? You can publish notes and you can read replies, but that's it. It doesn't do everything else. And maybe in the future, I have 6 or 12, or maybe my whole phone is just Nostr clients, but they each do a specific thing, right? Yeah. And so what else? How about an app just for managing your contacts? You think about like iOS, right? There's an app for managing your contacts. Like, so the feature, in a sense, think of Nostr more like the OS layer. It's like
I love that.
An OS for all these things. And then the app for managing your contacts, like in Apple, we have a contact management app. Now it's different. It's phone numbers and it's email address and all of that. But maybe there should be an app just for managing contacts. and it can help you organize all the people you know. It can help you maybe find new connections. Like, so maybe some of the discovery stuff could happen in that kind of app.
Totally.
Right?
And imagine, by the way, we talked about this a little bit before, maybe Nostr not only disrupts the Twitters of the world, we talked about it disrupting Google, maybe it disrupts Apple as well. Maybe in the future, like, unless they embrace it, right? But I could see a world where, imagine on your phone or your device, the search engine is an AI assistant. So it's like Siri, and it can speak with all, it knows your public private keys and can speak with all of your different Nostr apps to act on your behalf and or surface what you want on your behalf. So for me, like I mentioned, like the global feed thing, I don't think is healthy for me, like too much, addiction and whatnot. But I would love if I just had my AI that kept getting trained, ideally with my data set, maybe eventually on my own phone today, whatever, on a model in the cloud.
Right.
And it just said, hey, Max, based on everything we know about you, and like, I know you're trying to write this paper right now, so probably shouldn't flood you with a lot of things or whatever. Like, here are 3, here's a post I think you should read, pull from the Twitter client. Here's a long form essay I think you're going to love. And it's prioritized for you based on trust rank. And that's it.
Yep.
I don't have to check any apps.
Yep.
Or, I talk to Siri or whatever this new AI bot is, and I just say, hey, I just put out this new essay. Please share it in the relevant places. And it knows all the different apps to share it with for my identity.
Right.
Yeah, getting too excited there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think it does touch on that idea of like, a new foundation for kind of everything we do. Like, a phone is ultimately a communication device.
Yep.
And it really starts with the people that we want to communicate with. Who do I want to call? Who do I want to text? Who do I want to read from? And those things are all kind of up for reinvention now, right?
That's so fucking cool. I was just having a thought on this because I'm thinking a lot about, as I think I mentioned before, as I come into my Hive Mind Ventures fund too, fund one is really focused on Lightning. There's going to be a lot of Lightning fund too, but I'm increasingly thinking of it as the Nostr fund. And it just struck me, back in the early 2010s, I was a big fan of like Union Square Ventures. I thought they got a lot right. I think in their recent years, they've gone a little off with the Web3 thing,
right.
But you could basically, again, with different flavors and different versions of these apps, like probably just go back and like everything they invested in the early 2010s in Nostr base. Like think about it, like they did SoundCloud, like there's gonna be new music sites going to be dope with Nostr. Twitter, we're already seeing that get redone. Foursquare, probably gonna be some version of that gets redone.
Right.
And they're all gonna be different flavors and a lot of new ones. But like basically USV thesis from early 2010s on Nostr, probably a good thesis.
Yeah. It's interesting to explore that because I think there's a lot, I feel like gravity pulls things in different ways in this ecosystem. And so, it might be that there's things that kind of smell the same or rhyme in a way, but aren't really just like clones. And I think that's where the interestingness of it comes. Like
totally.
Like maybe the SoundCloud of the future is really focused on the payment and the sort of, staking reputation on a musician that you then help kind of nurture. Sort of a community assembles to nurture their career and to make them popular. Maybe the community can benefit from that. And so maybe SoundCloud of the future is less about like serving and hosting your audio files. And maybe it's more about like putting musicians into business in a new way, or kind of discovering new musicians and helping them monetize directly.
100% agree with that. And like, exactly, as an investor, the fun part for me is what are the new little tricks and flavors going to be? But I think if you strip everything away, all of these like core human desires don't change, or they don't change that much. And so the desire to discover great music and ensure new great music gets made that you can keep hearing. That's going to keep being there. Same with, discover great content to read, discover great new friends. Like all of those core things that each of those we're trying to take a stab at. Yes, now we have a new tool set with Bitcoin Lightning and with Mostr, and there's going to be new flavors. But like those same core human desires of discover great people, discover great content, create great content, share with great people, like, those are the same.
Those are going to be great. And then when investing in them, are you investing in an app that does that? Are you investing in like an ecosystem?
Who the hell knows? I think that's completely up for grabs. I mean, honestly, for me at my stage, and probably for you as an angel as well, it's just the people at this stage. Because I don't think anyone knows where this is going to go yet.
Right.
Which is what makes it fun.
The early stuff, you just bet on people.
Exactly.
Bet on great people. All right. Speaking of, we're still we looked at contacts just for reading threads, native apps instead of web. So I was a little puzzled by that because I thought, we've got some good native apps, And web seems to me like I don't know, everything about this feels so web oriented, or like the web could do a great job. And I wonder why native apps instead of web? Like, is it, yeah.
Probably just ease of use. But I think to your point, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Nostragram, which I haven't played with yet, but I've seen a lot of buzz around there. Someone recently put out a responsive web app. So I hopefully see a lot more of that instead, or both, but.
Right. Talks about web page comments on Nostr.
USV to discuss. Same
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see the new discuss.
Oh, this is cool. So if you do Wikipedia on Nostr, you can comment on these articles from social clients. So this is one. We'll see how my purple pilling goes. But I have a friend who I've known for a long time, and he's I haven't seen him in a long time. I haven't talked to him in a while, and he told me he's working on something that's kind of like I don't know. He said like something like a Wikipedia on top of ETH, and I was like, "What? Ooh. What does that mean?" And then I was like, "Why don't you come on and let's talk about what you're doing and sort of what your beliefs and assumptions are?" So we're going to talk on Monday, but I'm going to see maybe there's I don't know if there's some common ground or common ideas within that, but I think the idea of like Wikipedia on Nostr, like could you either take the core content of Wikipedia and then augment it with a bunch of this idea of highlighting and commenting and augmenting kind of a piece of written media is something I've been obsessed with for a long time.
This was your last company, no?
Yeah, and we never got there, but I think I think it's a really exciting idea because it could make the whole web much more participatory.
Okay.
Right. So imagine like a website like let's take Wikipedia. Let's take a Wikipedia article. Typically today, there's a lot of they try to take a neutral point of view. That's like one of the principles of the kind of stuff they write. They don't want it to be political. They want to be just neutral, kind of here's the facts versus interpretation of the facts. But I think there's a lot of desire to interpret the facts and discuss. So let's say we're looking at maybe a highly controversial Wikipedia article that itself only contains the facts, but we can have like a Google Docs style commenting system. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can show me all the comments from people I follow. Show me all the comments that have received a zap. Show me all the comments that appear, maybe there's like an AI. Show me the comments that appear to be in opposition to my beliefs. Show me ones that are consistent with my beliefs. So I can start to see how the world is thinking about this page, but I gather up all of the notes and organize them around the page instead of it kind of being in feeds flowing everywhere.
I never asked you about this, but your last company was this company Highlighter. Yeah. I'm assuming something like that was a central thesis. Like, what was your central thesis there? And then if you were rebuilding that company, and then also, why do you think it didn't click on? And if you were rebuilding that company today on Nostr, what would that look like?
Right. Yeah. Ooh, we could.
There's a lot there. I don't know how deeply
we could spend hours. I think the core idea of organizing, making the web more participatory and letting people, while they're consuming something, also contribute and participate is the thing that got me really excited about it. We tried a bunch of different flavors of how to achieve that experience, but it was in kind of I think, what was it, five years ago? It was in a kind of a more of a centralized social product experience world, right? We weren't playing with Nostr. I think Nostr was created in 2019. So it was before. So we're playing with more like centralized systems to try to make, a content that today we only read, to make it more participatory. Right. Let me see the marginalia. Let me see the annotations of what did Max think about this book he read, or what did Max think about this podcast he listened to? So we tried lots of different flavors of that. And I think, I'm just going to shortcut it. I think as an independent, centralized app probably doesn't have enough kind of energy to transition people to a new network to do that thing. So there's not as much of like a first moment, amazing kind of magical surprise, which is kind of usually required to make a new social networking service take off. But I think with Nostr, we actually can re-examine how that works, because you don't need to get everybody on a client. You have open data. So you could start with one piece of information. Let's say we take some article that we are already reading together. Let's say, some article about it, maybe a new AI article gets published. And we can create an interface that allows me to maybe use a highlighter to contribute, and it publishes back to my notes, or it's an other stuff, but it's a note that shows my highlight, and you can just consume it however you want. Damus, Snort Social, Iris, Hamster, however you want.
Oh my God, this is great.
But effectively, because the information is open, all the original content is open, you don't have to adopt a new centralized service. You can actually just notice what I'm doing. And if I'm doing a lot of it and you get really into it and want to interact in this new way, maybe there's a different client, again, open public domain, but a different client that actually helps you organize around the long form written media that you want to comment on.
I love this. Okay, so this is sparking a lot of things. I actually do think something like what you're saying is, I actually think it's a great idea, and I think it probably will work in a Nostr world. So if someone wants to rebuild what David was working on, highlight like in Nostr, like let us know. But it brings up two things to mind for me. One is I love this idea of being able to see other people's view of the web. And so I saw a thread with JB55 and Jack where JB55 was logging in to Damus or whatever with Jack's pub key, so he could see his view.
Yep.
And he was like, "Oh my God, being you is like kind of awful." Like, and I'm sure JB55 gets a lot of notifications, but Jack gets so many more. Yeah. That's really interesting. What I would love to see here is, okay, like, and eventually this will come out with the trust rate thing. I think Artur is working on as well. But okay, I think you have good taste in what information you surface. I'd like to have like a, what was that site? Kevin Rose did Dig. Or something like Dig, or like, I know, what's his name? The guy you talked with, Joe Davison, was working on this with Bookmark. Just like, look at your bookmarks. Like, what are the sites DK bookmarked? And what are his annotations on there? Right. Like, as if I'm viewing the web from you.
Yep.
And then I'd love to see the discussions. If you and Steve go back and forth with something like what was his thinking? And I can even choose like who I want to like whitelist is like, okay, what's the debate here? And I don't know. I just think there's going to be so much of that of like, and I think part of it's going to be, again, your AI assistant one day surfacing, okay, again, your web of trust, these are people you trust, here's the information, but just the ability to see the web from other people's point. Also, great point is, some people that I strongly disagree with.
Yep.
I would like to see the web from their point of view.
Yep.
Like, what are the ETH heads reading? Like, probably good to understand that. Like, their information consumption is probably very different than mine, which leads to very different perspectives.
Yeah, totally.
So that's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind is specifically with your idea on highlighter. I want to say I remember, like, didn't Andreessen talk about he wanted something like this in the first version of Mosaic or something way back in the day?
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And then I remember they invested in, I don't know if you remember, what were those guys, like the rap site?
Oh, Genius. Rap Genius.
Yeah. Which I actually loved because you could see all the annotations on there. And I know eventually their idea was to expand out of there.
Yep.
I think the problem was, again, it just never made sense. Like, it made sense. They got like the hip hop kind of like core solid focus, but then they tried to add like poetry and this, and it just never caught on because I think centralized was the wrong way to do it.
Right.
But if you could, maybe there's a lot of different sites or not even a single site, just, pub keys can highlight anywhere on the web.
Yep.
Then it starts to get interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think the thing that is new here is that you don't have to have everybody who wants to participate in the experience on at the same time.
Exactly.
And I think it was I think Paul Graham had this blog post he calls Free Smells.
I don't know that one, but I like it.
It's kind of like you wander by a bakery and you just notice some free smells. You don't have to necessarily go in and transact, but you're just aware of it. And you're like, oh, that makes me a little more curious. I'm going to like wander in, and then, more smells, and there's visuals and all kinds of things. It's a little bit of a different context, but, I think, if I recall, it was a while back, but if I recall, I was probably talking about kind of the freemium idea. But this is not necessarily that different from a freemium idea, but it's like the free smells is not meant to upgrade to a paid smells, but meant to be a experience with how maybe I'm using a new client, a new service that publishes through to Nostr, and those notes get published through to a feed, and you can get kind of free smells of this experience without having to go through the effort to download a new client and try to log in or worry about security and is my private key going to be safe if I do that? But you can sort of start to see, oh, DK's spending all his time doing this thing that I am not engaged with, but I'm curious about it, right?
Yeah.
The smells are attracting me into the bakery, and now I'm in there. I'm like, oh, actually, let me download that client and play with it. It's a different way to use the internet.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
So
exciting.
All right. Let's see what else. Anything else here? Oh, relay discovery. This has been a topic. This is still back on fiatjaf's post on this. So relay discovery has been a topic. I know he was writing more about this morning on Nostr as notes. But I think like, how do I know? He was sort of using the Alex Jones, like let's say Alex Jones gets banned from a bunch of the relays that he's currently using. How do his followers, people who want to see the information from him, how do they find the new place where he's going to be publishing from? And so I think relay discovery is like a pretty unsolved problem. And I think there's like some early proposals for how that should work, but it's, fraught with, I don't know, to me, it feels like it needs to have some like protocol upgrades or new layers or consideration, or maybe it's like a different type of protocol that helps relays coordinate, but it feels like
Well, and I think it depends. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. I know we're going to talk later. We can do it now, but like strfry was a new protocol or a new relay that they're using some Merkle-tree based kind of reconciliation system where you can basically look between different relays and say, hey, of all of your events, like what subset of our events are the same? Okay, we can just kind of like cross those out and then see what differs. And I actually asked Artur for his opinion on that, and he said it's a great technical thing, but we're probably not at the scale where it makes sense just quite yet to do that. Here it is, strfry. It's a great name, by the way. They have a link to the Merkle-tree based system, which it's a bit over my head.
This section?
Exactly, the Merkle-tree based reconciliation. So basically, again, it just like you can like with a Merkle-tree just like have a whole bunch of data link up to one really tiny piece of data and see within that tree what matches and what doesn't.
Right.
Anyways, but
I think it helps. The goal of that, my understanding would be that today I might be connected to 8 relays and I might pull down the same data duplicated across the 8. And if I use the Merkle-tree implementation that strfry has, I could interrogate a server, understand if it has something that I have. Like if I pull stuff down from server 1, from relay 1, I could interrogate and say, do you have anything new that doesn't fit inside the bundle that I have?
Exactly.
So just trying to clarify.
Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know all the details in this, but you might say, oh, it's like for between this relay and this new relay I'm investigating, it's like 98% the same. So I don't need to store that or like whatever, but just pull down the other 2%.
Get the diff. Yeah.
But I think that Archer's point was kind of interesting on this, which is it's technically very cool. And eventually at scale, it's probably gonna be very useful. But his point was like today, it's still going to be very like, we're going to have too much data very quickly for any hobbyist to be doing this. And I forget exactly what his argument was, but for some reason he was like, it's going to be easier for them just to like pull down everything, the professionals for a while. And so maybe this starts to make sense. I don't know, a couple of orders of magnitude more data, but I don't know. I'd have to go revisit his point on that. But I think it's interesting technology.
But if we're already seeing this idea show up in a relay, presumably a client
could use it too.
It's not valuable unless clients know to ask
exactly
for that from a relay. So like, where's the process? Is that a NIP? How does that?
Well, maybe just individual clients make that decision. Like clients can decide if they want to like help users.
They want to use the interrogation feature that strfry offers, but I guess then the relay publishes that it's a strfry relay and not a no stream relay or something.
And maybe there's like, who knows? Maybe there's like a payment gate if you want to use that, like an extra feature.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. But anyway, so I think from that that little section, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the fiatjaf post. We should link it. And there's plenty more. He talks about the bounties that were given out so far. So there's a lot. You can see the people that those were given to and
gossip,
sort of what was happening there. So it's definitely worth reading that post. All right, moving on. You wanted to talk about this. This was a coffee shop.
This was just like I thought an interesting insight, which I've seen other people have, which is that high level, some dude walked into a coffee shop, tried to zap. Like I don't know if he got zapped the sats and used that to buy the coffee. Probably, and was just like kind of demonstrating. But he was explaining everything to the coffee shop guy, and the coffee shop guy saw it. This is magic. You posted a note. You got enough to buy a coffee, probably instantly, I'm guessing, or very quickly.
Right.
Oh my God, what is this witchcraft? I want to invest, which is, how everyone's treated Web3.
Right.
Where do I buy these sats coins?
Right.
And the guy just couldn't get its Bitcoin. And so it's a very simple thing people have been saying for a long time. Sats the standard, but I do hope that with zapping now, and I hope exchanges or wherever you end up buying your sats, it becomes the norm to list either separately or however they want to instead of BTC sats.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, as silly as it sounds, in every bull market we've seen, a lot of the reason people go for like the scam coins is because they're cheap.
Yep.
and they see Bitcoin and they say $25,000, like I can never buy a Bitcoin.
Right.
Oh, here's this thing that's a penny. Maybe that's the next Bitcoin.
Right.
But if you see a sat and a sat's less
Yep.
than a penny, you're like, this thing's still early.
Yep. So basically, Bitcoin is old and dead, but
Right.
sats have room to grow.
That's right.
Okay.
That's the insight.
Just wanted to make sure I got the takeaway right. Obviously, that's garbage, but
Una broma.
I think this one's not. This one's not going to load.
Yeah, we can skip it.
All right. Next up, we've got. All right, Nostr bounties. Oh, this is really cool. So we've looked at Nostr bounties.
Mm-hmm.
This is the bouncer.org, bountsr.org, and this is run by NVK CoinKite. There's this new one that has been kind of popularly talked about this week a lot. Is this Nostr Marketplace idea? Mm-hmm. And I think right now there's 10 million sats bounty on that, and I think that was it put together. I thought there were like a few different people who were contributing that. I thought I saw an 8 million bounty, and then it got tagged on with another million or two.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen who the contributors are.
But it's really nice what the Nostr Marketplace idea. It's now a 10 million sat bounty.
Okay.
It says the author is Carnage March 1st. So I thought I'd even seen it. Maybe it was talked about on Nostr, and now it's kind of made it officially into a bounty. But it's it's basically think Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, but on Nostr. So, super simple platform to buy and sell digital products. Well, sorry, this is digital products, consumer grade, focus on ease of use. So maybe it's a little bit more like what people might do with like a Gumroad, or I don't know, maybe like a Fiverr. Oftentimes digital products are sold there. So list product for sale, generate automatic invoices. Once the invoices are paid, have a product listing storefront. And then he kind of gives a little spec of like, cover, image, title, description, upload link to file. Mm-hmm. So this is, I think, a really exciting idea to build a Nostr Marketplace. And it's got now some real, bounty momentum behind it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm excited about the concept of bounties. And then I think this marketplace thing, it's a little bit easier in my mind to see how to achieve it. I think the GitHub thing is a really powerful idea. Like GitHub on Nostr is a really powerful idea. I think there's probably a lot of discussion and debate to figure out what that should look like and how to implement it. But a marketplace for digital goods feels like a more like almost simpler starting point to just understand how it's a great example of a not particularly social networky application. That I think we should see on Nostr soon. So
and we will. And one thing I just want to add on that I like a lot is I would love, to your point about like upping the bounties. Like I would love to see not only the marketplace, but like I know one of the bounties on bouncer.org is for a bounty site, and so I was actually I'm supposed to talk with Geyser soon.
Is that the bounties manager?
I think so.
Is that this one? This is 5 million sats.
I think that's it.
Authors FNF. Do you know that?
It could be. I don't know FNF, but regardless, like I want to see maybe they should do this. Like the ability for you just to crowdfund bounties. So you're like, I really want to see this thing in the world. I'm going to put up 1 million sats.
Yep.
And then match it.
Yep.
Just super easy. Like, okay, like you just keep building, and the pot keeps growing until somebody builds the thing.
Right.
And if everybody builds the thing, well, maybe the pot is not big enough yet,
Yep. Super cool. So that's I think crowdfunding bounties is probably the best first step. Actually, I'm going to talk with the Geyser Fund guys on Friday.
Cool.
I think we have a setup to chat. I know you've been involved with that and close to them.
I'm an investor there.
I've chatted with them before, but it's been a long time. It was a long time back, so I don't know the latest. But yeah, we're going to talk about sort of where their head is on Nostr. But I wonder, like, do you think this kind of thing is it close enough to what might be good for them to be considering?
Absolutely.
Or
I mean, right now they're more like a Kickstarter, but like in principle, it's pretty. I mean, I'm not saying they should like completely shift direction,
sure,
but it's worth testing.
Yeah, because when I look at this idea of like crowdfunding bounties that help sort of create, these bounties are ultimately, I think, typically creating a digital good, a software product. Many of the most popular ones. To me, that feels like a really good petri dish for it. So I think when I talked to the Geyser Fund guys, was it back when like the Canadian truckers thing was happening, and that looked like it may be a bit of a catalyst, but there's so much real world friction and even political friction to making that work. Whereas building digital products together, there's like no political friction at the beginning. Basically, nobody cares about it politically, which is it's a feature. And you can actually just do it and get it out and get people using it if it's useful. So I almost wonder if like the Canadian truckers problem gets solved by the thing that starts in more of a digital versus digital only environment, and then it can graduate to the real world.
I think you had this insight. I think it's a very good insight. Like digital is just easier. Like start with less friction, and then over time, as you bootstrap users and capital, then it can grow into the digital real world. Mm-hmm. So,
all right. So next up, I've been trying to follow this story, and I don't think I've really nailed it all. But have you seen this? Do you know Alex Gleason? Have you seen this at all?
Well, I don't know him very well, or I just learned about him through this note. But I saw this note.
So I think what's going on here, my understanding is Alex Gleason was maybe the lead developer on Truth Social.
Oh, really?
I think is the case.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I know he was in Mastodon or whatever, but
yeah. So I should not be speaking if that's not correct, but
or is this the guy that built the Fediverse bridge?
Yes. Yeah. Same guy. Yeah. So that's kind of where this goes. So I think he definitely ran, a Mastodon instance or several Mastodon instances. And I think he was the lead developer on Truth Social, which was itself a Mastodon instance.
Oh, here we go.
And I thought I saw somebody saying that he was, his first kind of, his gut reaction to Nostr was like, nah, this will never work. This, for whatever kinds of reasons, he sort of just felt like it was like the wrong camp, I think. And, this is pieced together through a bunch of notes and tweets and some websites I've been reading. So, I want to make sure I get the details right, but I don't say I have it all together right now. But I think that's what he did. And then he changed his mind, and he recognized the importance of Nostr and built a thing called Mostr, which is a Fediverse bridge. So it's a way to bridge Mastodon instances into Nostr. And so he said, when I first saw Nostr, I didn't think people would actually do it. The last few months have told a different story. Nostr has been exploding with developer activity. I looked closer. And so he kind of concludes, I'd rather be a part of it than get left behind. So the first thing I decided to do is build a bridge. And so this is a bridge that connects activity pubs and Nostr together so you can communicate across. Now I know that doing such a thing can be fraught because it, I think, I don't know if you saw the one where Naut and I were talking about bridging other communication tools into Nostr. And there's real reasons to not do it, but I think it's because of these bridges, it's brought on a little bit of that, Eternal September kind of flavor to it that has been a bit, people are running into like some abrasive opinions and people that they would not expect or hope to find here.
Yeah.
But I think like one thing is it's nice to see somebody who's so deeply invested in the Mastodon ecosystem kind of recognize that Nostr is a better way to do what I think that ecosystem was mostly trying to achieve. There was also, you probably saw NVK shut down bitcoinhackers.org, which was like a long running, is it? Yeah, Bitcoin Hackers Chat or something?
Hackers.org, yeah.
Yeah. Because, it's kind of like, well, the future is here. We don't want to admin this thing anymore. We don't want to have that centralized control point. So I think it's interesting, sort of at a high level. We see NVK do that this week. We see this guy who I think is pretty influential in at least one public Mastodon deployment, and as a writer. And then he's decided, okay, like Nostr is the thing. Let's all put our attention and focus and energy on that, and let's win together with this mechanism instead of trying to like fight it. Like this is where it's going, so just like squint and look ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot here. I think that in general, most people are recognizing Nostr as a far more scalable and easy to use protocol than ActivityPub was. Mm-hmm. I'm not an expert on ActivityPub, but the fact that they're the owner of an instance, the admin could like unilaterally ban people or block you, like that to me was just a non-starter.
And then you lose all your followers, right?
Yeah, that's worse than Twitter in my mind. Yeah. So I never got excited about ActivityPub or Mastodon ever. And so I think it's an obvious conclusion that people will realize Nostr is much more extensible, much more open free. So that's good. I think in general, the fact that Nostr is open means anyone should be able to build whatever the hell they want. And if people are going to build bridges, the more eyeballs in general, the better.
Yep.
Now, having said that, I will say, there are certain corners of the internet, and, I've run into one or two in like Twitter and Nostr as well. That are just kind of trolls. And I think, you kind of learn to ignore that or don't feed the trolls. I think we need better tools. Now, I've noticed Jack and JB55 and other people talking about the crowd that comes from Mastodon and Truth Social type places tend to be more 4chan-y, a little bit more caustic,
right?
And can be actually kind of hurtful, like bullies on the internet. Right. And not saying everyone is, but there's a lot of those. So I think it's important that we have better tools, right? Like the beauty of Nostr is I should be able to say, I don't want that stuff in my feed. Cool. I can block that or, move to a different relay or whatever. And so I think it's important that we have more tools to help people mute or block trolls that they don't want to interact with. But that should be done at the individual level. And I think in general, the more bridges we build in Nostr, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of getting more bridges in there, but I do think like we're raw with tooling, so we don't yet have, we barely have mutes and blocks and stuff. But I do see an interesting future where, like, again, it's innovation. Let innovation flourish.
Yeah.
Like the future of like how should block lists work in a centralized service like Twitter are sort of very structured and rigorous, and there's very little experimentation. But I'd love to see experimentation where I can say like, look, I'm going to manage my own block list and I'm going to share it with people who I trust.
Yes, I love that.
And now we're curating the internet together. Maybe I can say, actually, that one that you blocked, I don't know that I'm so sure I want to block it. So like just alert, like let me know about that. But maybe I say like usually go with the stuff that Max says. Like he has good taste and he has like the right, I understand his motivation. I understand why he would decide to block people, right?
Right.
So I think like those kinds of tools and like there's all kinds of, how should they work and what are the permissions and what's the scope of who gets to see what about a block list or your block list or my block list, and can I do it? Does it have to be fully transparent, or are there any kind of privacy about who I'm blocking and who I share who I'm blocking with? Like huge open-ended greenfield design space.
Totally. And this is again the thing I love about Nostr, and like I love, to your point, for every new solution there's going to be new problems. Mm-hmm. Then every new problem, there's a new solution, and the cycle goes on forever.
Yeah.
And I think that where, I disagree with a lot of the like centralized Web 2 world, and frankly, just kind of like paternalistic thinking that a lot of people have gotten, tied up in, is this myth that, oh, there's this other body out there that as long as I trust in them, I get safety. It's like, no, they have all kinds of problems too. And we're starting to see those problems are getting bigger and bigger and the cracks are building over time. And so I think the better solution is you build a bridge. Bad shit will happen as trolls come in, and then people will see that and build solutions. And we don't know what those solutions are going to be. People experiment. And then over the next year, we'll get better and better tooling to solve those problems. As we get better tooling, it becomes a friendlier place that new people come in. I will say though, like, and I do have mixed feelings on this because, as an investor, I want to see this stuff go mainstream. As a user, I want everyone to have access to this stuff.
Right.
But there is also still a part of me that's like, man, I'm going to miss like when it was underground. Like when we went to Nostrica and it was just like, because you know what Nostr feels like right now. And it's funny because, a lot of people talk, oh, those Bitcoiners, they're so toxic and caustic. And there is a subset of those people. I feel like those tend to be more of the kind of like Mastodon-y, Truth Socially type people. But when you go on Nostr, people are very principled and they're willing to explain to you why only Bitcoin, but almost everyone on there, it's very solar punk, in that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Everyone is extremely positive, extremely kind.
Yep.
At least this has been my experience.
Yeah,
everyone's been, trying to affirm other people, help them believe they can learn more and do more, sharing zaps. Like it's probably been the most positive social community I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And so it's like literally almost a 180 from what, the kind of like narrative is.
Right.
And so I hope, at least for those that want to keep it that way, they get the tools to do so.
Yep. And I think, the beauty of permissionlessness is somebody will come up with those tools.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get the right tools at the right time, but it's a little bit, you can't really control it. You kind of have to just
let it play out.
So you don't have to encourage it to cause problems before their time. This is one, did you want to take this one? This is...
Yeah, I mean, this was just, I thought it was interesting. I forget his name. What's his name?
Dries
Dries
Buytaert.
Buytaert. Anyways, this guy is a developer of Drupal, which is like extremely widely used, I guess. I don't know if it's like, is it a CMS, content management system for the web?
Anyway, I think it's been around since like 2000. Like it's been, kind of forever.
Yeah, it's like very old school.
I think it runs 10% of the web or something.
Some huge percentage of the web. Anyways, point is, this dude just wrote a little love letter to Nostr a day or two ago. I saw this on StackerNews. And again, it's just kind of in the same spirit as the Mastodon guy. As smart, prepared minds are finding this thing, I've almost universally seen positive takes.
Yep. So another good one. Let's pop over here. You want to talk about Radio Garden at all?
Oh, yeah. So this was part of a broader topic that I wanted to discuss, which is I love Bitcoin. I love Nostr. But for this thing to go mainstream, obviously, I want to see more and more, great content beyond Bitcoin Nostr. So this one was actually found on StackerNews, but it's kind of a general purpose, is that most of StackerNews as well has just been Bitcoin Lightning news. And then I saw this here the other day, which is radio.garden. It's an incredible site that you can go all over the world and find different radio stations currently streaming. And it's so cool. I spent the other morning, here's a great station.
I don't know that it's recording that.
Oh.
But yeah.
But like, man, I spent the other morning, like it was a rainy morning on Monday, and I decided to make some like sweet potatoes of all things. It was really good. And while I was cooking it up, I just like listened to this radio station from Jamaica for an hour.
Were you stir frying it?
Oh yeah, it's fucking delicious. Get a little onion in there, kind of caramelized, like chef's kiss, baby. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, chef's kiss it.
But like, I was like listening to some Jamaican radio. My dad sent me some really cool stuff he found from the UK. I actually need to go like look in Bristol, which is kind of the home of trip hop. But it's just so cool. You can go anywhere. You can go to Brazil. You can go to Argentina, wherever. And it's just dope. Ooh, yeah.
Okay, I don't know that that's playing on the recording. So,
anyways, the point is, I recommend everyone see this. But my broader point here is, I'm starting to discover really great content. It's not just Bitcoin Lightning. And I sent, relative to that site, a large tip to whoever surfaced this, because I truly got value out of this thing. That to me is like pure value for value. And similarly, on this site that you're pulling up now, this is Jack asking what's everyone's best news source these days. And there was a lot of interesting meta discussion here about, well, what is news? Like, some guy was talking about, you should only find news that's actionable in your own life. How do you determine that? People are talking about various podcasts they listen to. The point is, like, on all of this stuff that I'm seeing in both StackerNews and Nostr, and hopefully StackerNews will soon be on Nostr, is, content beyond Bitcoin Nostr, which is great because that's going to help us cross the chasm to other kinds of users.
Yep.
And because people are using, the value rank, they're sending their sats, you can quickly surface what's good. Mm-hmm. And so that was the whole idea behind How to Disrupt Google, the essay I put out last summer, the concept of value rank that we even talked about. Like, it's all like happening in real time. And, again, it was cool and it was all Bitcoin meta discussion and Nostr meta discussion, but now it's like news, music, like that's a great sign.
Other new kind of non-Bitcoin, non-Nostr types of kind of products and ideas.
Yeah.
Though news itself there's probably a lot that pairs in with, how does a media diet get created?
Totally.
Is do a lot to like what you discover on a feed service like this. So, I wonder sort of, because I know you have some of your own kind of principles in how you respond to messaging, and probably that my understanding is that sort of flows through how you use your phone and sort of your relationship with your phone.
Totally.
Do you have a current lens on news that you expect to shift or shape around kind of the fact that Nostr exists now?
It's a really good question. To be honest, and again, I have mixed feelings on even Nostr these days, because I'm trying to use my phone less and less. Like, I've taken steps like, black and white on the phone. And honestly, I just try and avoid all news. I found that like the less I read the news, frankly, the less time I spend on screens, like generally the happier I am. And the news that I was getting was typically on Twitter. And I feel like I had a pretty good curated feed. Like, a lot of people complained about all the stuff they saw. It wasn't so bad for me, because like mostly I was following some Bitcoin stuff, some AI stuff, some just like weird accounts.
Yep.
I think that what would be interesting for me is probably to be able to like, again, I don't think I'm going to become that into the news ever. It's just not my thing.
You're just going to be a guest on a news show once a week.
Exactly. That's it. Well, this is a news show, but this is a very specific news show, right? This is Nostr News. But I think like, being able to tag certain people, like, for example, or like certain sources, right? Like, I think I found on StackerNews back in December an interesting like sort of alternative journal in Latin America talking about, here's what you hear, the West reporting that the IMF is doing. Here's like what's happening on the ground. Like,
right.
And that was cool to me. So yeah, I'll probably have like, certain hashtags or things that I follow and certain people I trust with each of those hashtags. And if, maybe I'll even have a threshold where I don't want any news. Like as an example, I love your taste in Nostr and tech. If DK ever sends a zap, that's 2 standard deviations above what he normally sends, surface that for me. If he doesn't, nah.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great lens. And again, more stuff you can do with experimentation. I guess nobody's really built any kinds of push notif type interruptive stuff. Not that I'm seeking it right now, but you can imagine if something really important, like, 2 standard deviations away, maybe I would want to get a text message or a push notif or something about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do find that it's easy to get sucked in by kind of, just stuff happening, right. But, really finding out how to focus your attention on the stuff you care about, the stuff that matters. And I actually think that podcasts are, somebody said to me something like, I think podcasts are, did you say? Podcasts are where the real truth is today?
Could be.
In information, just like stuff that people are not necessarily, I think when things get written, you lose sometimes the personality behind it or the intention in a way.
It's not as raw.
Yeah. Whereas the stuff we talk about, we probably would never write blog posts about it, but then it's just like us being real, right?
Just riffing for hours. I think there's something to that. And actually, so I take back what I said a little bit. I don't spend a lot of time reading news, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts, typically when I work out. I find that's like a really nice, like positive activity tie. Like I go to the gym, I get a good healthy workout, and then I also learn. And so I've been like consuming I can't keep up with DK's podcast, right? But all of your podcasts, that's yours and Kevin's recent podcast. That's what I've been listening to. And so I don't know if that's news, but I didn't feel like news. That feels like I'm actually learning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would hope that, it doesn't have that newsy feel to it of just like, hey, here's what you should be attracted to spending your time on, but more like, hey, you come away from this and you feel like you've got a good overview of what happened, what you want to get caught up on, just to feel like you're hearing all the main points, but without a lot of, extra, I don't know, not trying to generate controversy for controversy's sake.
You know what I feel, and something I've realized about myself is I love just having a lot of random dots and then seeing the kind of gestalt form from those dots. And I feel like, for example, I loved your episode with the AI investor because, it was really cool to see he's been thinking about all this AI stuff. And then you've been thinking about all this Nostr stuff. And then when y'all's minds met, it was like, oh, here, like, okay, we need to apply, signing to deepfakes. And like new things started to emerge. And that to me was super cool. And I hope on our show, even though it's a quote unquote news show, like I hope we help form more of a gestalt of what's in the zeitgeist or what might be coming in the zeitgeist every week more. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's ways to do news where it's like, it's interesting and stimulating and not just like incendiary or just kind of like facts.
Yeah. And I hope it can be kind of informative and educational so that people can kind of keep up to date with what is worth knowing about and not just sort of getting bogged down by junk.
Agreed.
But speaking
of junk,
speaking of a little,
some junk is fun too.
So you wanted to share this. You want to tell us?
Yeah. Shout out to Lynn Alden. Give her a little zap on this as well. She just posted this meme and I thought it was funny as Twitter goes and introduces their own centralized coins. Meanwhile, Zaps are killing it on Nostr. And
right.
I thought this was funny.
and I think this touches on, I don't know that as much as I think I get a lot of the culture of why these things are as they are, maybe like the Bitcoin culture around stake.
Yeah.
I think I kind of get it. Like I don't claim to be an expert, but is this also saying like that's not the real experience? This is the real thing?
Yeah, I think it's just saying like it's like kind of mocking the like silly version that's,
right. The clown show.
The clown show. Exactly. And again, yes, some of the Bitcoin ideology is a little silly, but this thing in particular, I don't even know if this is a Bitcoin. In fact, I'd actually never seen this meme before. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't seen it before either.
It's like there's real money and then there's like Chuck E. Cheese tokens.
Yep. Very appropriate. All right. There was a bit here on Breez. Did you want to touch on this?
Yeah, just really briefly, Breez released, Roy in general, there's a few people that I would recommend reading everything they've ever written ever. Roy is one of those that I would put in the top, 3 or so. And every feature he pushes with Breez is very thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big deal because he recently released their SDK. And so they're doing this non-custodial SDK for developers to build payments in their apps.
Mm-hmm.
Great, Lightning payments. And the open LSP model, again, he's always thinking about incentives. And he describes what I was describing earlier, that flywheel effect, where the more users, the more revenue opportunity, the more Bitcoin comes on the Lightning Network, et cetera. And so one of the missing pieces there was as we started to get a lot more users with his SDK coming out, apps exploding everywhere, Nostr exploding is to our question of could we send a 1 BTC payment? Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but we're going to quickly reach the limits of what the Lightning Network can do if we start onboarding millions of users fast. And I think that's going to happen. And so his question is, okay, cool. Now get a little bit ahead. What's the next limiting factor? And it's going to be Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. Mm-hmm. And one way to get more coins on the network is to help people launch their own, what he calls LSP or Lightning Service Provider, a term he coined in another essay a few years ago. And you can think of it similar to the Internet Service Provider, ISP. And it's just a way for, new people, individuals or corporations or organizations to plug in to the Lightning Network. And so Breez operates its own Lightning service provider, but now it's offering the software and channel connections to its LSP for new LSPs to come on board. And so let's just say, as an example, there's a publicly traded company he announced in there, Liquid Forward, Canadian, kind of Bitcoin holding company, and they basically are going to bring however X many number of coins. They want to start an LSP. They've got the coins, but they don't necessarily have the technical expertise or the well-positioned node. All they need to do now is start a node. And then Breez will offer them as a service for a fee, the software and the connections to their LSP. So, and the ability to tap into Breez's users as well. So that from the SDK, so that all they need to basically do is put up a node and then be able to commit Bitcoin to the node, and then Breez will handle the rest for them.
And then what's their value add? That company that's running that, is it like some sort of connectivity or liquidity that they provide?
It's the coins. Like they're literally saying, hey, I don't know how much they have, but let's say we have 1,000 Bitcoin and we want to add that to the Lightning Network. Mm-hmm. And so this is a way for them
to earn an APY, right?
It's to earn an APY. But the important idea is, and this is why I love so much about how Roy thinks, even though I'm not like, I tend to be middle ground, the custodial versus non-custodial road. I prefer non-custodial, no question, but I'm also not super anti-custodial. And then I think it plays a role in certain cases, especially for smaller amounts, whatever. But I love that Roy is so principled. His whole point is non-custodial or bust. And I'm glad there are other people that are trying custodial, but I really admire Roy's commitment to that. And so what his model allows is for people that have a lot of coins to earn yield on those coins without giving up custody.
Mm-hmm. And they end up committing those to a Lightning channel?
A Lightning node. Yeah. So they'll basically need to set up their own node, which maybe eventually Roy will help them even do that. So maybe they do it with Voltage or they run their own node or whatever. And then they get a channel open to Breez, and then they need to be able to commit coins there. And then from that point, I think Breez will handle the rest for them. But the important point is they never have to give Breez the coins.
Right.
Now, there are other services where in the future you can imagine Bitcoin banks, and again, I don't think this is necessarily bad. I think it's important that we have all of the above, right?
Right.
But we'll just say, hey, deposit with us a Bitcoin and we'll give you a 2% APY, and maybe they're earning 4% because they're doing all the routing. And so you split 50-50 with them, but you have the custodial risk that if they mess up or get hacked or someone, rugs you.
Right.
And so with this, Roy is taking cut 2, probably a smaller cut, or Breez is, but you never give up custody of your keys.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, that is our tab. Did we have anything?
Covered a lot.
Yeah. I wanted to talk gossip model a bit. I guess we touched on that a little bit, but let's see. Native marketplaces we talked about. The Fediverse bridge we didn't really talk about, but that's we did. We hit that one. Oh, Nostr Nest. Have you played with Nostr Nest?
I saw it, but I couldn't get it. Like I tried getting on, nothing was happening.
So this is the renamed, it used to be called Nostr Pleb Spaces, was kind of a Twitter Spaces Clubhouse-like experience. Today it's built on the web. I don't know if there's a native client coming in the future, but I think right now it's really meant to sort of, tick for tick, re-implement the experience of like a Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse experience. And I joined a few of them, and I had some audio problems, but I think it's more on my side. You know, I don't know, the audio permissions and stuff I think are still a little bit confusing, but the experience is like really good. Like I was able to sit around and listen to people, and I couldn't talk because of, I think, my permissions side of things, but I want to get it where I can actually join, because there's a lot of the, you know, familiar faces you see on Nostr are now hanging out on the Nostr nests.
But so this is my, I guess, point of confusion. Does it integrate with Nostr at all? Like, do you use your pub key, or it's purely a web?
It is pub key. So okay. I think it is this was a little bit confusing, and maybe I think Derek Ross is the one building it, so maybe he can clarify for us. But my understanding was that when I arrived, I gave it my pub key, and it kind of let me just be me with just my pub key. So I think my guess is what he's doing is it's early, and he doesn't want to have people pasting private keys into his website.
Good.
So I think he's kind of granting that there's not a lot of spammers or scammers showing up today, and it's like you can kind of auth with just your pub key. If I understand correctly, he can correct us if we're wrong. But it's a pretty good way to get the core experience, but it's not, you don't really verify in the same way. I think you can like take some key that they generate and verify it on Nostr, and then you've verified your your actual account. But I don't know. I have to look through the mechanics of that. But I was able to show up and hang around and listen, and it works really well. Like, so the whole all of the important parts of the experience work. Nice. Now some details around the bridges to the Nostr identity and stuff, and how you kind of manage security are still maybe to be ironed out. But
cool. One other thing I wanted to mention briefly, I mentioned this earlier, but on the marketplaces, there's actually, I forgot if I had a link in there somewhere. There was, under marketplaces. Yeah, there's two up here, I think. Yeah.
Oh, Plebeian Marketplace. These are not going to render. Let's see. Okay. Let's pop them over to,
I just wanted to highlight this real because I thought this was pretty cool. So there's two marketplaces I saw this week that are Nostr based.
Okay, this is rendering now. So sell anything. So we're on Plebeian Market, Plebeian.market.
And maybe these guys should actually get the bounty because they basically are a Craigslist. So I think you can auth with your, I think I used Albi and use my Nostr, which by the way, I think just login with Nostr is going to be huge very, very quickly. So this is selling like physical stuff, which I think is a bit trickier because, for all the reasons you talked about whenever you touch the physical world, but it's cool. And I think they were already, a project operating pre-Nostr and now are turning into a Nostr-based Craigslist.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool. And then the other one I wanted to show is, I forget the name of it. It's right. Yeah, that's it. This one actually, I think this has got legs. This is an Ordinals, or like basically NFT marketplace on Nostr for Bitcoin Ordinals. Oh. This is sick because it's purely digital. So I think this thing is going to go wild. Now, a lot of people are trying to build a centralized marketplace, and I think doing it the Nostr way is going to be much more successful. And maybe you own like the primary web view that people use for it, but I think this is super smart.
Yeah. I think NFTs, the inscription ordinal NFT idea is another good one for the putting aside the politics of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think having a digital experience for discovering and transacting those makes a lot of sense. And, having that through an open system like Nostr makes a ton of sense to me. So,
and I think, I don't know if it was on this marketplace somewhere, like, and again, this could be wash trading, but like, again, putting the politics aside.
But isn't all NFT wash trading?
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely all is. But I think I saw someone pay like over 1 BTC for a poop emoji, which is like, but hey, it's all digital. So if you want to do it, knock yourself out. You got a Nostr marketplace.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, we are just crossed the 2-hour
long rip.
Long rip. So maybe we can call that a day for the day.
Cool.
And we're going to pop this. We stopped doing the live stream. Instead, we made the the video. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of editing, a little post production, and then we'll get it up hopefully late this afternoon.
I love it. And yeah, for anyone coming out to Nostrica, if you have ideas on who should be, we should jam with, let us know.
Yeah. We want to find, I still haven't booked a space, so I'll just maybe I can book a place to stay that can also be a little bit of a mini studio. And I've got, I can pack up the gear and we can do it there.
Sounds like a party.
All right. Fun.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Peace, guys.
See ya.